Michelle, thank you so much for chatting with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm
Oh,
enjoying your all your figurines back there.
thank you. Yes. I've just put myself together a new space for podcasting. Thank you. I appreciate it. But honestly, I love Float. It's such a joy. Um, the film is so much fun. What was it that drew you to the project? What excited you about be a part of the story?
I thought it was a great script. I thought it was a great twist on the romance genre. It's a genre we've seen many, many, many times, and we usually see the same two characters repeated over and over again. And I was really excited that they were making it an Asian-centered family and protagonist. And I'm a very big champion of trying to make POC characters at the center of their own narratives. And so to be part of that journey and to work with a POC female filmmaker like Sherren, that all of that were A pluses for me.
Absolutely, and of course, Andrea as well. And the two of you have wonderful chemistry on screen. The scenes where you together just look like so much fun. And I was wondering though, one of the things I love about your character is the artist, and I think there's that. I forget what the animal is that you're drawing. It's on the wall.
Vanity.
A man, yes, and it's such a great scene, and you get the sense that your character is up for taking risks, and certainly that's a key theme of this film, especially with Andrea's character as well. And I was wondering what you think we gain from taking risks.
For the character of Waverly, who's played by Andrea, I think getting out of your comfort zone meant more than just that moment in her life. It meant the next 4 years. And I think that the decision that she has to make about standing up to her family was something that was prolonged, needed to happen, and it was a signifier of it's a signifier of a new chapter in her life. And I think that's where risks become more important to just us in our everyday lives. Is that it's a cumulative effect of you make this decision, but it grows you in so many different ways. And when you don't make those risks, while it might feel like in that moment it pertains to that one decision, but really, probably for those of us who can see it on the outside, it's hard for us to see ourselves. We can see that that one risk changed your trajectory.
Mm.
I think that that is ultimately what the film is trying to point to, is that she was and has been on a trajectory of denying her truth and denying her real authentic self in relationship to her parents her entire life.
Mm.
And now she's at the moment where she has to she has to stop, limiting herself in this way that she thinks is just minor. In fact, it's actually quite a big decision and a moment of maturation for her.
I love that you're saying that about her admitting her truth to herself, because I think that's so key. And your characters had that moment as well. She just had it before the film in many ways. I get that sense. But one of the things I love about this film is the theme of home, and certainly you open your doors to to Waverly. But I was wondering what you think it takes means to be someone's home.
Well, you're talking to someone who is adopted from Taiwan,
Wow.
and my home was, it was in Taiwan, and then it became America. And I grew up in a household. I was adopted by my aunt, and I was able to see what home was in a new country. I be trying to understand my whole life what American meant, what being American meant, and what Americanness is,
Mm.
was its own journey. And also seeing that home becomes defined by your definition of who you are and where you place home. And because I was because I've been displaced isn't exactly the right word, but because I am displaced in terms of my point of origin, I really had a long defining conversation about what home is and how how or what I attribute to home meaning in my life, that it doesn't come with just the structure, of course. There is there's an emotional value to security and how we find security in our lives. And usually home traditionally is supposed to be a safe space, but for a lot of people, home is not a safe space. And because the character in Float has been displaced because uh, she's come to America without her family, she's had to learn how to create her own space, but she hasn't really found the meaning of that for herself. And so that's the thing that has to get aligned. And that's what was true for me, having come to America and just becoming American, but not knowing exactly what that really meant for myself. I've really spent a lot of time thinking about what home means.
Just of course, well, certainly. I mean, so I mean, you're drawing a distinction, if I'm hearing you correctly, between location and people, and there's different ways to understand home under those two contexts. Am I understanding it?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we could spend a whole conversation
Sure,
about this.
of course.
But it for me, because it's been such a long conversation, it also has to deal with economic class, race, gender, in terms of where you feel at home.
Mm.
And you have to constantly define that. But I think in terms of security and the safety and where we feel that the most, typically it comes from your family home. But in this film, I think what Rachel, in very, very general terms, is starting to open the world up of home is how you create that security for yourself.
Yeah, I for sure, and extending that, of course, to Waverly's character, or
Yeah.
Andrea's character, Waverly, who is, I don't want to use the term running, but avoiding her parents as much as she possibly could.
Yeah.
And it creates a beautiful tension too as she settles in with this smaller community and sort of relearns who she is, or is more free. Maybe that's one of the keys too about this conversation. When you have that security, when you found that space, frees you up to be who you are.
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely true that if without that security, the freedom doesn't follow. You are you are tethered because you are tethered to this sense of what you think is security, but there actually isn't true security there. So yeah, the freedom, the liberation that she has to go through isn't there until she realizes, what is safety for her.
For sure, absolutely. I told you this is one of the things I loved about the film is there's so much you can discuss with it. Like I really enjoy that about it. With the it is a delightful film. The chemistry between the so like I said with you and Andrea, but certainly Andrea and Robbie are wonderful. But there's meaning to it. You can tell that there's some heart to it, and that I really appreciate. What do you hope people take away from Float?
On one level, I hope they're entertained because there's a beautiful love story here. And I think what's intertwined in that story is a story about family. And ultimately you realize like that's kind of where she's headed, and the love and the romance part of it is the cherry on top that you get to like, you get to kind of devour, and then you realize, oh, there's a whole deeper story here, and hopefully that is meaningful. So you get a 2 for 1. Um, and I think that the exposure to a new filmmaker like Sherren, who is coming onto the scene and is really super talented, we're in a culture now where it's hard to know what to watch.
Hmm.
And it's hard to know what to spend, where to spend your time, because there's so much content and there's so many distractions. And where do you invest your time? And I hope that people can get something where they're both entertained and shown a slice of life that maybe they're not exposed to, or that they get to see a traditional narrative of romance with a different kind of cast, different enough where we notice it, but not enough where we're like thinking about it while we're watching the film. So I think in that way, as a filmmaker, I hope that this movie moves the needle forward and being able to to show representation, but that we're also just walking out of a really fantastic film.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is such a key part of this. I love the representation, and I love the sweeping narrative of it. In some ways, I say sweeping. It makes it. I mean, it's such a simple film, but it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I do think Alfonso is the DP, and I think he did a spectacular job of making a romantic film in a small town feel sweeping. So I think it's very accurate.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. Such a joy to chat with you, and I wish you the best.
All right, good luck.